Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. We are continuing on with Better Than Fiction today. We are doing chapters 3 and 4. Chapter 3. It wasn't even that deep. Bakugo point of view. Bakugo scowled at the empty page. The document on his screen was still blank. The cursor blinked, waiting. Nothing was coming. He scratched his neck, cracked his knuckles, and stared at the screen like it had insulted him. Still nothing. The words weren't there, or maybe they were, just buried under the echo of someone else's voice. He looked over at the book Kirishima had convinced him to take. It sat on the desk like a challenge. The one the redhead had insisted was less soul-crushing. Bakugo had flipped through the first chapter earlier just to prove it didn't matter. But it did, damn it. He told himself he'd read one chapter, just one, enough to say he gave it a shot. But a few pages in, and he was already hooked, which pissed him off more than anything. He tore through another chapter before he even realized it. Somewhere around page 65, he caught himself rereading the same paragraph twice, not because he didn't understand it, but because it hit harder than he had expected. Tch, he muttered, tossing the book face down on his desk like it had personally offended him. He ran a hand through his hair, leaned back in his chair, and sighed. Dumbass was right. It's not bad. The cursor blinked at him again, expectant. He cracked his neck and stared down at the document again. Still nothing. He rubbed the back of his neck, frustration growing. It wasn't the book that was distracting him now. It was the way Kirishima looked at him when he talked about his book, like the words had meant something, like he'd seen himself in them. He hadn't been faking that. Bakugo hadn't expected that hearing someone talk about his work like that would hit so hard enough that he couldn't even concentrate. It's like he's been through the same hell as me, remembering Kirishima's words. Bakugo sighed again, sharper this time. He hadn't known what to do with that. So that's what it feels like when people talk about your shit, huh? He thought to himself. It's not so bad, I guess. Actually feels kind of nice. Until you remember he doesn't know it's you, Bakugo breathes out, with a heavy sigh. Maybe it shouldn't matter, but somehow it does. The harsh realization that Kirishima has no idea it's him, and for some strange reason it doesn't sit well with Bakugo, that Kirishima is out here giving all of his love to a faceless stranger. His fingers hover over the keyboard, then drop away. He hadn't asked which book hit Kirishima the hardest, which line stuck with him, or if he'd ever reread them. He said he'd read more than one book. Maybe he'd talk about them if Bakugo asked. He could ask. Maybe. Not that he cared, but if he did, it'd be nice to hear what someone thought when they weren't talking to the author, when they thought the author was someone else entirely. He clicked the document closed. He'd ask tomorrow about the books, just to see what Kirishima had to say when he wasn't trying to impress anyone. And maybe he wanted to know what else Kirishima saw in his words, even if Kirishima didn't know they were his. He glanced back at the book, still lying face down on his desk like it was waiting for him to give in. Just one conversation, that's all it would be. He told himself he didn't even care what Kirishima thought, not really. But maybe, just maybe, he wanted to hear it anyway. He shut his laptop. Tomorrow. He'd figure it out then. His fingers hovered over the book's cover, caught between wanting to pick it up and needing to put some distance between himself and whatever it meant. Finally, he picked up the book, turning off the light and letting the darkness settle around him as he headed off to bed. Chapter 4. Just not today. Bakugo point of view. Bakugo pushed open the door, the familiar chime echoing in the quiet shop. The soft hum of the espresso machine and the faint smell of roasted beans greeted him like an old, strange comfort. Kirishima looked up from behind the counter, his eyes lighting up with recognition, but there was a flicker of surprise, too. Hey, Kirishima said, voice casual, but with a hint of something unreadable. Bakugo cleared his throat, shoving his hands in his pocket. You're Kirishima, right? I, never asked. Kirishima grinned, brushing a hand through his messy hair. Yeah, I didn't either. I was wondering when we'd actually get around to that. Bakugo shifted his weight, suddenly aware of how stupid it felt to not have introduced himself sooner. His ears felt hot. Kind of hard to bring it up when you're halfway through a conversation about depressing books. Kirishima chuckled. Fair. Bakugo glanced away. It's Bakugo, by the way. Not that you asked. Kirishima raised an eyebrow, grinning. Didn't need to. Name's on your cup. Bakugo grunted. Yeah, well, yours is on your shirt. Kirishima snorted. Guess we're both observant, huh? A pause settled between them, just long enough to feel like something needed to fill it. Bakugo shifted his weight. So, yesterday, you were talking about those Arata books like they saved your life or something. Kirishima tilted his head, smile softening. Yeah, I kinda was. There was a pause, and Kirishima's expression softened. So, you really want to know what I thought? Bakugo nodded, surprised at his own eagerness. Yeah, I mean, you said you read more than one, right? Which ones hit you? Which parts stuck? Kirishima leaned on the counter, eyes thoughtful. Honestly, Arata's third one, How It Still Burns, convinced someone to buy a copy of it earlier in the week. It's got something. Felt real. Like it wasn't just words on a page, you know? Bakugo's heart twisted, but he said nothing. Instead, he asked, Did you ever reread any of them? Kirishima shrugged, a small smile playing on his lips. Maybe. Can't lie. There's a pull to those stories. Hard to walk away. Bakugo's fingers curled into fists at his side. Yeah. Bakugo continued. How many of his books have you read? Kirishima thought about that for a moment. I think I've read them all. As far as I know, there are only 5. They're all incredible, but that third one? His expression softened. That one hit the hardest. Bakugo swallowed. His throat felt tight. So, how'd you end up reading Arata in the first place? Trying hard to sound curious. Kirishima tilted his head to the side. Sure got a lot of questions about a guy whose books you thought were just fine. Bakugo scoffed, bristling. Well, damn, I was just trying to make conversation about an author you seem to like. He crossed his arms, looking away. Fucking whatever. He knew he was being dramatic, but he hoped it would be enough to throw Kirishima off the scent, get Kirishima back to talking about books instead of questioning him. Kirishima blinked, then laughed, easy and warm. Relax, man, I'm just messing. You can ask whatever you want. Bakugo didn't answer right away. His jaw flexed like he was biting back a response, or maybe just swallowing his pride. Just caught me off guard, that's all, he muttered. Forget it. Kirishima leaned an elbow on the counter, still smiling, but not pushing, just waiting. Bakugo let the silence stretch for another breath before grunting. So, that third book, what was it that got you? A shift, quiet but steady, like a door half cracked open again. Kirishima's face lit up again, the awkwardness already forgotten. Man, that third one. He leaned a little closer across the counter, voice dropping, like it was something too personal to be loud. It was the first time I read something that didn't feel polished, Kirishima said, voice softer now. Like it wasn't trying to be deep, it just was. Messy and honest. It wasn't just about surviving. It was about being angry you had to, and still choosing to let someone in anyway. Even when it hurt, it didn't treat love like a fairy tale fix-it-all. It showed how brutal it can be, but still worth it. That hit me hard, like someone finally said the thing I didn't know how to say out loud. Bakugo didn't move, didn't blink. The words settled between them, not heavy, but not light either. For a second, Bakugo forgot how to breathe. Then the door swung open. The bell over the entrance gave a sharp ding. A gust of warm summer air followed a new customer into the shop. Kirishima straightened, back to business in an instant. Hey, welcome in. I'll be right with you. Bakugo shifted his weight, looking away as Kirishima turned toward the new patron. He wandered towards the shelves, letting his fingers graze the worn spines of well-loved paperbacks, pretending to browse. But his ears were still tuned in to the redhead's voice, bright, friendly, a little rough around the edges. As he moved deeper into the shelves, the shop felt quieter, softer, like the edges of the world had dulled a little. He'd been in the shop almost every day for a week, but it was the first time he actually looked at it, looked at the books, the care behind the layout, the way the space felt more like someone's living room than a business. The store didn't carry just anything. Every book felt chosen, which meant someone had chosen his books. Maybe Kirishima, maybe not, but someone had found his books and thought they deserved space. That was the part that hit the hardest, because for the longest time he hadn't been sure his words mattered. His chest felt tight, like someone who had seen too much without even trying. He let his hand fall away from the shelf, fingers curling into a fist, like that might hold something in place. He didn't belong here, not really, but his book did. And that felt complicated. Bakugo cast one last glance towards the counter. Kirishima was laughing again, bright and unguarded, like someone who had made peace with the parts of himself Bakugo still tried to hide. Bakugo turned towards the door. Maybe he could tell Kirishima who he really was someday. Maybe tomorrow, he told himself. Just not today. All right, friends, thank you so much for joining me for part 2, which was chapters 3 and 4. I hope that you'll come back and join me for the next part, which will be chapters 5 and 6. All right, I'll see you next time.